Hello, everyone. My name is Safwan Shah. I'm the founder and CEO of Payactiv. I'm here with Mark Woodka, the CEO of OnShift, who I also consider my friend. And both of us are going to talk about the work we do. And so without further ado, let me first have Mark introduce himself and his company, OnShift.
Thanks, Safwan. Very happy to be here. So as Safwan mentioned, I'm the CEO of OnShift. We are a human capital management software provider for long-term care and post-acute providers. That's a pretty fancy term for, we're kind of a people platform. So we provide software that does everything from employee recruiting to applicant tracking, onboarding, workforce scheduling, employee engagement, and financial wellness apps through our partnership with Safwan and Payactiv.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And just for everyone's benefit, my company, Payactiv, is partners with OnShift. We've had a long-standing, almost 4-year relationship, whereas Mark mentioned, we do the financial wellness component of their suite of services. So as we go along in this discussion, our intent is to make it very interactive. So Mark and I may interrupt each other, may expand on particular things that we like, and just because we know each other, we can do that. But the end intent is for all of you to kind of benefit with our conversation if you're thinking about using OnShift services and if you have any workers that need some of the financial wellness services. So one of the first things that I wanted to share with everyone when we talk of Payactiv, let me describe to you what it does. So Payactiv makes access to earned wages real time. So a worker can actually access what they've earned before payday. We are B2B, so we work with businesses, and our clients utilize our services to improve financial health. And I met Mark actually through an investor. Mark, you remember?
I do.
I called you, and he said, "Well, who are you?" And
like, who the heck is
this is how it started.
Right.
So the way it actually transpired is that I was introduced to OnShift through a person who I knew, and he happened to be an investor. And then we looked at the website, and I thought this was like an amazing business. And so I sent emails back and forth. And finally, what I realized is at that time, I looked up Mark at that time, that he was an accomplished leader, enormous experience in delivering technology and software solutions. But more than that, as I got to know Mark, I realized how deeply he felt about the workers, the businesses that they served. So Mark, over to you to just talk a little bit about your business in more specific details.
Yeah, sure. And I also want to talk about, my interest in our partnership, Safwan, and why it was so compelling to me. So as I mentioned, we're a software company, and we provide software and services exclusively to skilled nursing, senior living, continuing care, retirement or life plan communities, memory care, et cetera. So all considered the post-acute, long-term post-acute care continuum. We service about 6,000 clients around North America, touching almost 1 million caregivers. And I'm going to use caregivers generically, Safwan. By caregiver, I really mean frontline staff. So that could be caregivers, it could be dietary, it could be housekeepers, the people that interact with the residents in our clients' buildings kind of day in and day out. And so, we've been in the business for about 10 years. And what's interesting is I started having a lot of personal experience with this industry about 6 years ago. My mom spent the last 6 years of her life between senior living and skilled nursing settings. She had lung cancer, had to have half of a lung removed when she was in her early 80s, and spent the rest of her life either in a senior living or skilled nursing. So I got some real firsthand exposure. I'd been in the OnShift business for about 4 or 5 years at that point in time. Certainly been in a bunch of buildings and communities around the country and talked to a number of caregivers, but not at the level of someone taking care of my mom, right? And so it became really obvious to me, this is a passionate group of people that do an incredibly hard job and do it with skill, with passion, with dedication, and their lives can be difficult, right? In many cases, these people are earning $11, $12, $13 an hour. Now it's going up as minimum wage, continue to raise around the country, and that's good. But still, that's primarily the wage rate that these people are providing for their families on. And as you know, Safwan, that can be a very stressful, a stressful situation for people. And it's financially difficult to live on $11, $12, or $13 an hour. So I think, getting to know the caregivers led us as an organization to say, our mission going forward is to transform the lives of our customers' employees. And how can we do that? And I think your reaching out to me, the timeliness was perfect because we had just started down that journey and that path of thinking, and partnering with Payactiv became a central core of that philosophy and the implementation of that philosophy for OnShift.
Wow, I didn't know these details, but that is amazing to know and learn about it, because when I reached out to you, at that time we were a much smaller company and maybe had 50, 60 businesses that were using our service. And it was an uphill journey, because when I started Payactiv, and maybe it was like 9 years ago, and I did it because I felt that I used to ask people that, why do people wait 2 weeks to get paid? And nobody could answer the question.
Right.
And it was literally on that premise. And then I was seeing all this data in the newspapers about this many people living paycheck to paycheck. There are more payday lenders than there are McDonald's, so many check cashing stores. And this data was coming out because, remember, between the 2009 and 2012 timeframe,
sure,
that big meltdown and all that. So all that was there. And so for me, it was an uphill struggle to go to businesses and to actually explain to them why this could be good for their employees. It's counterintuitive, right? People think that by holding somebody's wages, you're in some way improving their lives.
Right.
The effect is actually opposite, because it's just one of those things that I think is counterintuitive and a blind spot in society. So when I talked to you and you spoke about it with understanding, I think it was very helpful to me and at that time, very motivating as we were building this business. And I think the OnShift wallet was an outcome of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely was one. And, what's funny is when I first spoke to you, why do we pay people on a 2-week cycle? Because we always have, right? And because payroll is a batch process and you don't think about any other way to do it. I certainly never did. Yeah. And I'll admit, when you first approached me, I thought, well, that doesn't make any sense, right? And then I thought about it for 10 minutes. That makes all the sense in the world, right? And if you think about it, I think what resonates with our clients and their staff is paychecks happen every 2 weeks in our industry, right? People tend to be on an 80-hour pay period. Every 2 weeks they get paid. But guess what? Payment cycles for bills don't happen on the same cycle. Yeah. The rent is due the first of the month, whether that lands on a payday 3 days before a payday or 7 days after a payday. Right. And so for people to be able to manage their bills and manage their finances, the Payactiv solution made perfect sense. Giving people access to their earned but unpaid wages between paychecks enabled them to meet their obligations in a timely manner without doing things like payday lending or check cashing services, which, as you know, and I think you've got some data on that, are exorbitantly expensive for low-income workers. So it made all the sense in the world to me.
Yeah, and just to kind of be a little more granular about it, I recall when we started this program in Payactiv, we wanted to give it a name. So we called it Earned Wage Access, not early and not advanced, because we thought there is no debt involved here. Nobody creates any debt here because you're accessing money you've earned already. So it's right. A payments solution, not a credit solution. That was a big sort of understanding that we had to communicate to people, that your employee, your team member doesn't have to take on debt if they're accessing their own money. So the word earned wage access was kind of important for this. And I think it matters to employers also, because they feel that they are in some ways responsible for the well-being of their employees and the services they offer. So this kind of became the good service, the sort of anti-payday loan service.
Sure.
And the only thing that changed in it, and one of the things that I learned over the years in explaining to people, because people said, well, why hasn't it been there? It's like the blind spot. Like once you discover what it is, then you can't take it out of your mind. So one of the things that I kind of learned in communicating was that the level or how much you are paid is not something that, governments, they're set by government. There's a minimum wage and salaries and state laws. when you are paid is something that is entirely in the hands of employers.
Sure.
And without any cost, practically no cost. The dividends are huge. It's almost like an infinite ROI by letting people access what they've already earned. So it was things like this that I think really helped. And when OnShift went live with it, it brought a large pool of people in a very important vertical. And Mark, tell me about it. Like, you've been serving these are the frontline workers, right? These are the people that are the essential workers.
Absolutely. And what's interesting, Safwan, is, as you mentioned, we've been doing this for about 4 years. And two comments. One is, when we started talking to clients about it, there was that lack of understanding, right? And people scratched their head and said, first of all, they couldn't get over the fact it wasn't debt, right? Because that was the first thing they went to, is this is just a payday loan that maybe is cheaper. I'm like, no, that's not it at all. Your people have earned the money. We're giving them access to it. And then there was kind of a parochial approach of, well, but am I training my people not to manage their money effectively? And so there was a little bit of reticence from some people in that perspective. And as customers got involved, they quickly realized that wasn't the case at all. I think our stats indicate from the surveys we do after someone takes, accesses their earned wages, is the vast majority of the money goes to groceries and paying rent and paying bills. There's nothing frivolous going on there. It's, I just need money now, as opposed to in 7 or 8 days when I get my paycheck to pay whatever or put food on the table, right? And later on, I'll tell some stories that we've gotten from caregivers over the course of the years that are just heartening to hear the impact that we're having on the lives of people and helping them achieve things that they just haven't been able to. Now, fast forward to last year with the pandemic, and that became uber urgent. So what we saw last year was, you had a lot of people, in our customers' employees, that their spouses may have lost their jobs. They lost their childcare. They had to scramble to find food, because they didn't want to go to a grocery store in their scrubs after work because they were looked down upon. People were nervous about that. Here comes a healthcare worker that may have just been with people that are sick and they're walking into my grocery store. So our access to earned wages last year went over $50 million, which was phenomenal, right? And so this really helped out the caregivers tremendously through a very, very difficult time. And the beauty of it is, it didn't cost the employers anything and they didn't take any risk, right? There's no financial risk for the employer. It's purely a benefit to them. And it engenders loyalty from their employees to the employer in a tremendous way, because this is a perk that their employer is providing to them. Granted, it's through our partnerships of one, but it's a perk that's coming from their employer, and it engenders tremendous loyalty. I think our stats are something in the neighborhood of 93% of people would recommend OnShift Wallet to a colleague, and 89% of people would recommend their employer as a place of employment to colleagues, which is, in this industry, is phenomenal. That's off the charts, employee satisfaction.
I mean, you're so right, and the trends, the macro trends, and as well as the micro trends that we have seen, and this is something that I've continuously tracked over the last 7, 8 years, that there is a cost of waiting to get paid. And many times we are unable to quantify it. So I went out and said, okay, I'm going to quantify that cost. So the first thing that I did was, I said, let's take a 2-week period. If 150 million people, which is the working population of the US, is waiting 2 weeks to get paid, and let's say they're getting paid $2,000 every 2 weeks. Per capita is about 50,000. So, and it's roughly the correct number. Let's say it's even $100 million for easier math. $2,000 every 2 weeks. That's $200 billion.
Yeah.
That's every 2 weeks that's stuck in the system. And what this does is it moves a fraction of that money a little faster.
Yep.
And when it moves a little faster, the downstream effect is amazing. For instance, some of the data in the US for alternative financial services is that a typical person who could be an hourly worker is losing $200 to $250 every month in overdrafts, payday loans, title loan fees, and other dings and penalties. So if $200 to $250 a month is $3,000 a year, 12 times 250. And that is on a $40,000-$50,000 salary. That's 7% of their purchasing power is lost. So earned wage access and what you're doing, I think, is kind of giving people an increase in purchasing power, which I think is sometimes not understood by a lot of people.
Sure. Well, and if you think about it from our perspective, at a 12 or 13 or $14 an hour, it's a $26,000 to $30,000 a year, right? So it's probably closer to 10 or 11%.
Yes.
That they're paying in those fees, and being able to eliminate that and let them spend that money on things they need to spend it on, like food and bills, is a huge benefit to this population.
And we've seen it consistently, right? That when because there's bill pay and other service, there's a card associated with it. The OnShift wallet has a Visa card associated with it, that you can actually see where the money is being spent. And it's remarkable that the first place that they spend is usually on food. In fact, it evolved our thinking around this, that they're actually looking for food, fuel, something related with an auto because they have to fix it or get to work. They can't get to work. Food, fuel, auto, shelter. And sometimes they pay like various types of insurances, and shelter could be daycare as well. So it is amazing to see that the money is spent on livelihood needs.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things, Safwan, I'll tell you one story that we had from a caregiver at a customer in Detroit area who had a problem with her car and was able to access her earned wages and download them to our debit card. As you mentioned, we have a Visa debit card that provides immediate access. And she was able to get her car. In this case, her battery had died. She got her car jumped and was able to get to work. And the way she told the story was, it didn't just prevent her from a bounce check fee or going to a payday lender to get this. She thinks it saved her job. She said, hey, if I would have called off or no-showed, I might have lost my job, because that's happened to me in the past. When I haven't been able to get to work, I've been fired. And so it's more than just, did I save $33 on an overdraft charge? I saved a job, right? And that happens every day in our industry, where workers can't get to work for whatever reason, and they end up getting terminated in a lot of cases. Now, not across the board, obviously, but certainly it happens. And this woman was so thankful that she had access to wallet because she was able to get to work, not only get to work, but get to work on time and make sure she didn't lose her job.
Wow. Are there any incidents that you can remember with an employer? Because I'm sure not everyone agrees to use this, but anything that comes to mind when you think about some strong reaction?
Yeah, I think we've had some really strong reactions from some of our customers. Some people use the wallet as a linchpin in their recruiting, right? So they'll say, look, if you come work here, you get access to your wages between paydays. It's automatic. It's if you need it, when you need it. And so they're using it as a recruiting tool. It's leading to better retention. So I think the hiring rates are up, the retention rates are much better. And if you think about it, the other thing is, and sometimes when I talk to clients, they'll say, well, we have an employee financial assistance program. We'll advance money to people for anything and take it out over, 5 paychecks, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I always talk to those people and I say, well, what percentage of your population do you think takes advantage of that? And the feedback that I always get from them is, well, everybody who needs it. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, in the research we did in talking to people, there is a portion of the population that is too proud to go ask their employer for an advance on their wages. They don't want their employer to know that they need money between paychecks, so they just don't do it, right? And so there's a dignity aspect to this too, where I can privately get access to those earned but unpaid wages and do what I need to do with them without having to raise my hand to my employer and say, I can't afford my rent this month. Can you help me out? Right? Or I can't afford to get my car fixed. Can you help me out? So I think there's a huge dignity component to this. And we hear that from the employers all the time. They get that feedback directly from their staff, that now they've got a solution to financial wellness that is contained to them, and they don't have to share their financial challenges with their coworkers or their employers, and they feel a higher level of dignity in avoiding that. So we've gotten tremendous feedback from clients. Obviously, last year with COVID, we had a lot of clients sign up for a wallet that hadn't previously done so. And with your help, you guys were fantastic. We got people implemented as quickly as we could. and it was accessed immediately and provided a lot. So there's a lot of people that felt like our partnership with you and the wallet really helped save their workforce a tremendous amount of difficulty through the pandemic, when it first started last March and April.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing when you think about it. When we kind of started and where we are today, this word that you used comes up often, and that is dignity. I mean, how fortunate are we to be doing something which actually makes lives better, right? As business people, we look for meaning and purpose. And when your work leads to somebody else's improvement in their life. So to me, I just want to, for a moment, stay on this word dignity. And not only that, we may be fortunate that we're doing something which helps lower income or any person who's kind of caught in a bind between paychecks. But for employers and businesses, this is an amazing sort of almost like a ventilation system where people do not have to lose their dignity and ask for money. It just works behind the scenes and everyone gets something which they can, and it cannot hurt them, unlike a loan or something, which
Right.
you can be. So there's this aspect of it, which I think keeps coming up, this word dignity, because there should be no shame in some of these things. So that's one thing that I think over the years that has been consistent. Another thing, Mark, that I want to just for a moment dwell on it is we always thought of it as financial wellness. But nobody can define it accurately. Like, what does it mean? Does financial wellness mean saving money or avoiding dings and penalties? So we, in our world at least, started using the word livelihood. If your livelihood needs are met, that's the beginning of financial wellness. And I just wanted you to sort of share your thoughts, because I know you think a lot about these things too.
Yeah, I think that's a great description of it, because to your point, financial wellness to you and I probably means something completely different than it does to other people, right? For us, it might be, how's our 401k, right? Do we have enough money to retire? And for a lot of our client staff, it's, do I have enough money to pay my rent when the bill comes due, right? So I think livelihood is a great way to define it. And I think everyone's looking to, satisfy their basic needs in their livelihood. Why do we work? We work so we can get a paycheck, and we can afford to feed our families, and we can afford to buy a car and ideally do the things we want to do and meet our livelihood needs. And if you're, a lower income worker, that's harder to do, right? And so, a service like OnShift Wallet with Payactiv just enables that, and enables kind of a frictionless way to do it. The beauty, one of the beauties for me is we're able to offer this benefit to our clients at no risk, right? There's no cost and no risk. It's like, how do you not sign up for this, right? For something that helps your employees achieve their livelihood objectives when you take absolutely no risk and actually get nothing but benefit from it, right?
Yeah.
The goodwill accrues to you as an employer to say, we're offering this program to help make your lives better. And so I think, it's a very, very positive experience. We talk a lot about it internally in OnShift with our team members. Everybody's very, very excited that we're able to offer solutions like this that are helpful. And as my team, more and more of my team is having an intersection with the senior living long-term care industry, right? As either grandparents or parents are getting exposed to this, there's this dawning realization of what a hard job these people do. And they should be able to have a good life, and they should be able to meet their livelihood objectives, and they should be able to pay their rent on time and have a decent life. And so it feels good kind of all the way around to be in a position, as you mentioned, to be able to provide these solutions to the industry we serve, which does such a tremendous service to our society.
And hits all three key variables, right? Ability to recruit, as you mentioned.
Yep.
They use it as a recruitment tool. Ability to reduce turnover, because once you have a service like this, it's a benefit. You don't want to leave it and quit the job. And finally, the engagement it creates, because just the fact that you got a shift that you wanted, the time the window that you wanted to get that work. And then you get paid right after this. This is very empowering. I'm sure that people do more hours of work because of this.
Well, I can tell you, we have the data on that, Safwan, and we see a very strong correlation between people just checking their balance, right, in the OnShift wallet app, and then picking up additional shifts, because it's right there, right? They know if they pick up that additional shift, they're going to make another $200 and have access to part of that tomorrow, to your point. And in some cases, just automatically get paid with timely pay. Customers are paying their employees the next day for hard to fill shifts. It's tough to fill night and weekend shifts, or it's tough to have a part-time, in our industry, a part-time worker and kind of an on-call is called a PRN, right? And most people have PRN pools, but it's hard to get those people to work, because I might work a shift on Monday and get paid 2 Fridays from now for it, right? So I work 8 hours, I gross $200, I'm going to get $170 net, and I'm waiting 13 days for that paycheck, right? There's a complete disconnect between providing the work and the value of doing the work, right? So with timely pay and wallet, they can work that shift on Monday and get paid on Tuesday. And so that's, again, a huge benefit to the employer. It's helping them get those difficult shifts filled. And it's an incentive to the employees to fill those shifts. Knowing that they'll get the money right away is a huge incentive.
Exactly. And I hope, like everyone else, you and I, and most of the world believes that we are going to come out of this pandemic like the roaring 20s. And everything will be better and whatever before the pandemic took so many, put so many people in such a situation. Do you think that some of these services will mean much more after things come back to normal?
I do. You look, if I read the tea leaves of where the world is going, this is going to become just a norm. Right? This is going to be the rule, not the exception. I think the last couple of years, as you and I have talked, this has been the exception, right? Getting people to sign up and get on board with this. And now there's so much momentum for it. I think look, we're going to move to a daily pay environment one way or the other, or at least access to wages in that format if you want it, right? It's going to be an option that's going to have to be offered. And the smart employers are getting ahead of the curve, right? There's a continued war for talent. Our industry is still struggling to hire. Fundamentally, we've got a lot of workers on the sidelines because they're getting, strong unemployment benefits and stimulus checks. And we need to get them back to the workforce. And I think this is an important part of getting them back in to say, look, you can come back and work and you'll get paid right away. And you don't have to wait 2 weeks. And guess what? When you start a new job, sometimes it's 4 weeks, right? If you miss that pay cycle and then start, there's usually a 1 week holdback or a 2 week holdback, and now it's a month before you get paid. Well, that puts you in a really, really difficult position. And solutions like Payactiv and OnShift Wallet solve that problem, right? It's not a problem anymore because we've got a very frictionless solution to it.
It gives me great sort of pleasure and pride that this particular idea has now, it kind of manifested itself as an embedded solution. Like OnShift Wallet is your wallet, and we are able to be a piece of that value proposition. So to be embedded in your offering and success is very empowering to us because the solution is embedded. Then in some cases, there are different things that different employers need, and we are able to do those things. So from Payactiv's point of view, or my point of view, a relationship which involves, a direct relationship, an embedded relationship, an integrated relationship, I want to be able to make my service available almost sometimes like a processor that, if there's anything else we can do, like timely pay or have a Visa card and things like that, it's, paying bills, so on and so forth, or even calling Uber from the app when you don't have any money, and to be able to call Uber and get to work, and so on and so forth. So these are all, to me, the relationship with OnShift is very empowering, and it is the kind of thing which allows this service to go to millions and millions of people. And to me, that is just the most fantastic part of this. But before we kind of wrap up and sign off, Mark, is there anything that I should ask that I haven't asked you?
That's a great question, Safwan. I don't think so. I guess, we kind of touched on the benefits to employers, the benefits to employees. I've said, look, if I'm an employer, this is a no-brainer. This is just a benefit that engenders loyalty, helps me hire, helps me retain people. So it's all good. I think, one thing I would say, if you ask me, how has our partnership been? How do I perceive the partnership? I think it's been fantastic, Safwan. You and the entire team at Payactiv have been not only great partners from a business perspective, but tremendous innovators around this space. You're enabling me, my vision is to transform the employee experience. You're a key enabler of that. Your continued innovation, the Uber rides, the Amazon Cash, the things that you are embedding into Payactiv that we're able to embed into Wallet and roll out to our clients, just continue to add value and continue to make those caregivers' lives easier and give them more control over their financial well-being, more control over their livelihoods, and just help them out, which is just fantastic. So we greatly appreciate the partnership with you guys. You've been fantastic partners, and we look forward to continuing the relationship for a very, very long time.
I have to thank you first, Mark, and I want to tell you something. And before we wrap up, I want to, in some ways, quantify what you've done, because you may not have thought of it that way. Imagine, and this is actually a fact, you probably reach at least 1 million caregivers, if not more, in your vertical and all that. And if what you've made available for them is earned wage access through the OnShift wallet between paychecks, many of them, let's say if we just used 1 million as the number, were paying this needless fees between paychecks, which as data tells, it's published data, it's Financial Health Networks data, is $200 to $250 per month. 1 million people, about $250 million a month is at risk, which the OnShift wallet helps avoid.
Yeah.
That's a pretty serious impact that you and your company is making.
Well, and that number annualized has a B behind it, right?
I know. I just didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say it.
That's a very, very big number. And look, we're going to continue to grow and serve more employees, and 1 million is right about where we're at right now. And I think it feels great to be able to offer this and do this. And hopefully we're taking that money out of, financial institutions and putting it into the pockets of our customers' employees, or into the grocers or the merchants that provide, needed products and services to them.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed talking to you, and all the best. Thank you.
Always a pleasure chatting with you, Safwan. Thanks for inviting me. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.